All right, again, back with Clown in a Cornfield. Part 3. Yes, these were all recorded on the same night. I would imagine you could figure that one out. They're all getting uploaded at the same time, but you know. All right, chapter 2. Did I see that correctly? Oh, okay, chapter 4. You know, you'll get a little better with this. Chapter 2. Quinn woke to a phone alarm she didn't remember setting. She flopped onto her back and blinked for a second at the unfamiliar ceiling, then looked over to the poster that come loose overnight and was hanging limply by three corners. The new desk, the boxes still to unpack. Nope. She hadn't imagined Kell Spring. There was a knock on her door, the sudden noise shoring up Quinn's consciousness. I made breakfast, her dad said. A pause. It's downstairs. I want to into the office to see what I'm dealing with, okay? There was another pause and Quinn stretched. Her dad was waiting for confirmation she'd heard him. Okay, good luck on your first day. Yeah, why not? It didn't cost her anything to be nice. Love you. Love you too, he said as he descended back down her attic stairwell. And good luck yourself. But Quinn didn't need luck. Only one of them was nervous about the fresh start. With the house to herself, Quinn showered. The hot and cold knobs were a finicky puzzle that she only halfway understood, but it felt good to be clean again after all the moving and dust. She then dressed and dried her hair. She looked at the flat iron, deciding if she was going to start out the school year with her kinks or without. It took 15 minutes, and while some days she hated the iron, today the warm, smooth pull of the device put her at ease. She got the curls from her mom, and with her mom they would stay, at least for a while. Quinn came downstairs to find that the breakfast her dad had mentioned was a chip-clipped bag of Lucky Charms. Dad had unpacked a single bowl and spoon and placed them on the kitchen counter. No milk. It was hard to tell if he was joking or if he thought this actually qualified as making breakfast. Before what happened with Mom, Glenn Maybrook had been a funny guy, but now that humor was subtle. Class started in 45 minutes. Judging from what she could see of the town out of her bedroom window, she estimated a 10-minute walk to school. She could take her time and still be early. Quinn sat on the floor with her cereal bowl and scrolled on her phone. It didn't take long to find herself frustrated at both the sluggish speed and that seemed to be no morning messages from Tessa or Jace. Thanks to the time zones, it would be an hour later in Philly. They've already forgotten about you, and you haven't even been gone a full 48 hours yet. She grabbed her empty book bag and set out for school early, just to be moving. There were two cross streets that would have led her toward the school building, and Quinn opted for the one that looked less depressing. The houses were larger, farther apart, and all carrying that cat lady vibe in both decoration and upkeep. It wasn't just the faded porcelain frogs holding signs that read, "Bless this home," or the strings of Christmas lights drowning in overflowing gutters, or the pots of flowers dying either from neglect or because it was their season to die. No. There was plenty of shabbiness back home, but there was also a new life creeping around the edges. Philly ate its rot, was constantly demolishing the old to make way for the new. Looking at these houses, Quinn was struck with the feeling that Kettle Springs had left its best days behind. The town had given up. Quinn was so lost in her thoughts she hadn't noticed her neighbor following her. The boy was two houses behind, on the opposite side of the street. When she looked over her shoulder at him, he caught her eye and started to double time it to catch up. Quinn had asked her father about him last night, over dinner, but Glenn Maybrook couldn't remember the boy's name. Years of medical schooling, memorizing every single bone, vein, artery in the human body, and he still couldn't hold on to the neighbor's name for a few hours. I want to say it was Rodney? Dad, if that kid's name was Rodney, then two people in this family are set to have a nervous breakdown. They both laughed at that. It was a nice moment, even if her father's iffy memory now felt like it was like one more thing that she ought to be worried about. Hey there. Quinn looked across the street. Not Rodney's pace slowed to stay parallel with her. Still flannel clad, the boy waved two fingers to get her attention. Hi, she said. She didn't feel like talking, but there was no escape now. He crossed the street between parked cars, not bothering to look both ways. Nobody was going anywhere in Kettle Springs anyway. I'm Rustin Vance, he said, voice friendly but laced with, what, Midwest dirt and grit? I live next door. I met your dad yesterday. The boy stuck out his hand. Not how she usually greeted classmates, but she took the hand and gave it a firm, if awkward, shake. His hand was calloused, something Quinn was unsure she'd ever felt. That and his general demeanor gave the impression he was an adult. Maybe that was just the calluses and the crooked, broken, and reset nose, or his dirty blonde stubble, now tawnier that she was seeing it up close, still impressive and fuller than she was used to seeing on guys her age. But then again, there was also something goofy about Rust that kept him from being intimidating. Maybe it was the wide smile, or the ancient stains on his flannel shirt, or the shirt itself, its pairing with the camo backpack. Which was it? Did he want to blend in or stand out? I'm Quinn. She nodded at the school, the tallest building on the horizon, and added, It's my first day. Dr. Maybrook mentioned that. Huh, Dr. Maybrook. She snorted back a laugh. Russ scrunched up his face like he'd misspoken. Oh, it just sounded very formal. I think of him as Dad. Yeah, well, he seems nice. Seems cool. My dad never worn sneakers in his life. Quinn remembered the white Reeboks. How happy her dad had been to buy them before the move. More evidence of a new start. For the last 15 years as an emergency room doc, he avoided the white shoes. Blood spatter was a work hazard. He has his moments, she agreed. He also mentioned Philadelphia. Is that where you're from? Maybe it was Russ' down-home presence, or maybe it was the sky had brightened. But talking to him made Quinn feel better, more relaxed. For a moment, she forgot that she was in Kettle Springs, that she knew no one, that her life was a wreck. Life, Quinn had decided on the long ride out here, was a matter of perspective and attitude. There was a way to look at anything and make it seem okay. She felt sure of it because, well, what other choice did she have? It's a nice little city, Quinn said about Philly. It was the same attitude she would have taken if she were talking to a tourist, some opposing volleyball player in from New York who just said her hometown was better than expected. But putting it that way to Russ made Quinn feel like Philly was somewhere she'd visited once, not the place she'd lived for 17 years. Going to be a big adjustment here, Russ said. He was right. The intersection they were passing had white picket fences on either side. The houses closer to the school were nicer, looked less neglected. Yeah, well, I've decided the change will do me good, Quinn said, not realizing that was the attitude she wanted to take until she said it. Russ nodded in agreement, and they lapsed into silence for a block until they crossed the street in front of the school. Up ahead, the kids were milling, taking a last moment outside before they'd be inside all day. Quinn watched one car, then another, turn into what must have been the school's parking lot, a cracked expanse of blacktop ringed and chain link fencing. One of the boys near the handrail was spitting into a water bottle of Quinn felt her gorge rise. Gross chewing tobacco. It'll take some getting used to, I'm guessing, Russ said, picking up where they'd left off, probably seeing her turning green. But I think you'll learn to like it. Don't judge it from how it looks. He smiled, seeming to indicate himself, then added, Not totally. Bro, this flavor is so good. It's poppy. It's a wild berry. Not sponsored, but I think, I'm open. I'm wide open for poppy. Um, what's there to do around here? Quinn asked. I mean, for fun. He considered. I'm probably not the best guy to ask. There's great fishing and hunting, if you like that sort of thing. She blinked at him. She fished once on a family trip to Florida, but hunting? Never. Not in a million. Ducks are in season, he fumbled. Quinn blinked again and tried not to wince, but something in her expression must have given her away. Oh, right. Probably not helping any stereotypes with that answer, the rest said. Yeah, well, there's also a movie theater on Main Street, the Eureka. Mostly old stuff, but sometimes they get newer flicks, color even. He widened his eyes to show he was joking. There was a frozen yogurt place too before Bay Pen closed down, but that's gone. You can drive to Jamestown if you want to go to the mall. It's about 20 miles once you get to the highway. It's a good place for a hang, or so I've heard. Quinn remembered the window from the dilapidated factory in the Clown. Bay Pen. What is that? Saw the factory from my window. What'd they make there? Clowns? Ah, no, that's just Friendo, the mascot. Bay Pen made corn syrup, but the refinery burned down. Rush trailed off as he looked up ahead at the school building, where crowds of kids had all gathered to wait for the bell, but where no one seemed to be waiting for him. It's a long story. Oh yeah? They ship their product out all across the country. You probably had our syrup and didn't even know, he said, that last part with a weird amount of pride, like it was his corn syrup. My father used to work security there. Started when he was my age, actually. Until the fire? No, it closed before that, Russ said, climbing the stairs two at a time. She moved to catch up, then realized Russ was cutting ahead not to outrun her, but to hold the door. The fire happened recently, actually. Well, I'll have to get the long version of that story out of you later, Quinn said. She pointed a thumb at the front office. I have to go get set up. For sure, Russ said, smiling before offering his hand to shake again. Somehow, shaking hands with Russ felt less like she'd made a new friend and more like her first job interview. Maybe I'll see you in class, but probably not unless you signed up for Metal Shop. She gave him a shrug, tried her best irrepressible smile. Who knows? Maybe I did. Turning, she nodded goodbye and pushed into the front office. The woman behind the desk was squinting at an old computer screen, the colors warped and faded. Quinn cleared her throat and the woman looked up, haggard and unhappy. How can I help you, young lady? The woman asked, a friendly statement rendered somehow not friendly. Hi, Quinn Maybrook. My dad called. I'm new. The woman didn't speak. Instead, she plucked a manila folder from her desk. Here's your schedule. Good luck, she said. Looking Quinn up and down, she gave a scoff that said, You're gonna need it, and turned back to her emails. Okay. Quinn picked up the envelope and hurried out to the office to open it. Her locker wasn't hard to locate, but the combination inside the envelope didn't seem to work. 29, 6, and did you hear? Someone said as they walked her way. Oh no. She was already being gossiped about as the new kid from the city, which, and she didn't want to sound conceited here, was probably big news. Of course I heard, someone yelled in response. Everybody's heard. I can't believe they let him back. Wait, him? I can't believe he came back, but I'm glad he did. The first voice returned, settling at a locker across from hers. I mean, it's not like anyone can prove he did anything. I'm sure there's evidence, but my dad said who's gonna press charges. I mean, his dad owned the place, more than anything. I'm pissed that he only got a 3-day suspension. Yeah, I got 2 days once for a shoving match. Quinn was so engrossed in eavesdropping she didn't realize she was staring into her locker door, motionless like a lunatic, until a voice beside her said, You have to start at 0. Huh? Quinn turned to the speaker. A girl with a close-cropped hair, dark at the roots and light at the top, a hoop nose ring, the septum, not the nostril, was suddenly in Quinn's personal space. The girl snatched the combination from Quinn's hand and began to read. They all start at 0 for some reason, but they don't put instructions on the printout, the girl said. She was wearing a Thrasher magazine sweatshirt, and cargo shorts, the kind built for function rather than for fashion, but on her they seemed somehow fashionable. So this is just like a skater girl, like stereotype. She's got the septum and the Thrasher shirt. Like, at least if you're gonna make a stereotype, do a real skate brand. Anyways, there you go, the girl said, pulling down with a sharp clack and letting gravity swing Quinn's locker open. Oh, thanks, Quinn said, realizing that she didn't have anything to put in the locker. Not yet. She'd been opening it to make sure she could, to give her something to do before the bell. But now she felt too self-conscious to just close it again. I'm Quinn, Quinn offered lamely. The punk girl seemed content to let the interaction be over, but Quinn wasn't sure she wanted it to be. People call me Ginger. And before Quinn could ask why, she added, My hair used to be lighter. Oh, you knew? Is it that obvious? Quinn asked, smiling. Unlike the woman in the front office, Ginger gave no up and down, didn't seem interested in Quinn at all, merely looked Quinn in the eyes and offered, It's a small town. Okay, a little rude, Quinn thought, but Ginger had helped Quinn open her locker, which had been a nice gesture. In a hallway where the kids were dressed well enough to look like an ad for American Eagle, Ginger presented an intriguing alternative. At the very least, she looked like she came from an ad for a different store in the mall. But before Quinn could think of anything else to say, the doors down the hall slammed open. All heads turned as two boys entered the hallway. The boy in front, while on the short and stringier side, held himself with confidence that made him seem somehow bigger than the meathead marching in lockstep behind him. Everyone in the hallway was watching the two boys, even the students who turned to face their lockers and friends, the kids trying to look like they weren't looking. No, not the pair. They were just watching the boy out front, the other guy. Big as he was, a neck so thick that it wasn't a neck at all, just an extension of the guy's head. That guy was simply set dressing. Cole, someone whispered. That must have been his name. No last name yet, just Cole. Or maybe that was his last name. Halfway down the hall, Cole looked to Quinn, effortlessly finding her in the crowd, his glare lingering. He had a button nose and a puckish grin, and perfectly tousled dark hair. There were circles under his eyes that could have been from partying or lack of sleep or both, but he wore the fatigue like makeup. His shirt was unbuttoned enough for Quinn to glimpse the edge of his undershirt, a white V-neck. As he passed, she took note of his jeans, distressed around the knees, near the pockets, and fitting like jeans should. Standing in Cole's wake, Quinn heard someone whisper, "My mom says she can't believe he's not dead." And someone else added, "My uncle says he ought to be." The Neanderthal trailing behind Cole seemed to overhear that last comment. The big guy sneered in that direction, his job to squash all Cole criticism. He wore a rumpled football jersey with a picture of a mean-looking, steroidal goat on it. Must have been the Kettle Springs High logo, blue and gold, the KSH colors. Quinn watched the pair of them go. Cole bounded up the stairs at the far end of the hallway. His bodyguard friend was slower, using the handrail like he was too big to win the fight against gravity without it. Wow, who was that? Quinn asked, trying to get Ginger to look up from working on her own lock. Cole Hill. We used to be friends. Back when my hair was lighter. Ginger said, then tossed an eye to the side and smirked. And yeah, he's pretty cute, she said, pausing before adding. For an arsonist. Cole, hold on. I don't know how I already forgot. I read these within like maybe 2 hours. Cole was the guy who was doing the YouTube. So now he's like an arsonist or some shit, and Ginger hates him or something, and I don't know. That's gonna be interesting, but not tonight. It is 1:30 in the morning, and I am tired. So that's it for now.